Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here and sharing this moment of both celebration and sorrow for someone that I know we hold dear, and in some ways he's left the physical presence of this planet, and in some ways he's left us all richer because of his gift. And when I think of Zakir Hussain, I think of someone who inspires for generations. And I take great solace and inspiration, in fact, in thinking about his interaction not only with music and rhythm, but with listening and with an involvement with life and with all forms of music, whether that's literal or spiritual. And also his incredible sense of humor. Such a serious musician who always had an incredible smile or joke or something to leave us with. My name is Rachel Cooper. I'm here at the Asia Society, and really honored to be sharing this moment together. And again, in these very, very troubled times that we're in, I think there's something that also inspires us beyond the musical experiences that we've had. And again, I reference listening and rhythm, and that idea that how you listen, and can you listen generously, was so much a part, at least of Zakir, that I experienced. Whether it was classical Indian music, or Balinese gamelan, which I play, or the Mahavishnu Orchestra, or any new music, that generosity was combined with curiosity, and I think we all know, a talent that is extraordinary, because I think it lives on in our ears, and our obligation to listen as fully as we can when we think about Zakir and the next generation. And I think the next generation of musicians and audience members is equally powerful and important. So I'm really honored to be with you all, to have this moment that we can share in the grief we feel of having lost him, and the celebration of what he believed in, and really being able to continue that, see how that can continue in its new form in this world we live in. So I'd like to invite our co-organizers, Sunny Thakkar, to come up and say a few words.
Namaskar. Before I start, I want to thank Rachel and the entire team and Shruti Rawoot for being the sounding board, and also being so open about having this here. Truly grateful to you for opening Asia Society for this special occasion. And the memorial of Zakir ji. Tabla and Ustad Zakir Hussain are synonymous. He wasn't just one of the greatest tabla maestros to ever grace this earth. He was also one of the kindest, wittiest, and most compassionate human beings I've ever encountered. Like millions of tabla students around the world, I grew up idolizing him. He wasn't just a musician, he was a beacon of hope, and like Rachel said, an inspiration and an ultimate role model for everyone. Over the years, I had the extraordinary privilege of meeting him and spending time in his presence on multiple occasions. Each time, I was struck by his unmatched humility and warmth. Despite being such a towering figure in the world of music, he treated everyone, whether a lifelong admirer or a first-time fan, with the same genuine attention and care. His memory was razor sharp, and his ability to make everyone feel valued and heard was unparalleled. That humility and that humanity is why he was adored by millions across the globe. On October 20th, after what ended up being his final concert in New York City, presented by the World Music Institute, I had the privilege of visiting Zakir ji backstage, and in our conversation, we spoke about the much anticipated concert that the Indo-American Arts Council and the Tillis Center were planning to present him and his Masters of Percussion in this coming April. Sadly, that dream will remain unfulfilled. As the Artistic Director of Music at the Indo-American Arts Council, on behalf of our Chairman, Dr. Nirmal Mattu, our board, our Executive Director, Suman Golamudi, we join the global music community in mourning this profound loss. The legacy he leaves behind is monumental, but the void his passing has created is immeasurable. We continue to pray for his soul to rest in eternal music. Ustad Zakir Hussain was in a league of his own, and the world is forever richer for his gifts, but also poorer in his absence. Thank you. I request Shruti Rawoot to say a few words.
Words to add or to express my feelings. Hence, I share a note from my father, Pandit Kiran Deshpande, who shared musical and rhythmic brotherhood with the Ustad and mutual love and respect since their first encounter with each other in 1965 at Pandit Anokhe Lal Mishra Festival in Allahabad. We remember Ustad with profound affection, reverence, and an overwhelming sense of loss as one of the most radiant and irreplaceable maestros of our time. A devoted custodian of a legendary tabla gharana, he honored his inheritance with grace and elevated it to new heights through boundless creativity and soulful artistry. He, a complete artist. As an accompanist, he enriched the music of countless legends with unparalleled sensitivity and grace, becoming one with their expression. As a soloist, he transcended boundaries, unraveling the intricate beauty of the rhythm, breathing life into tal with his brilliance, precision, and spontaneity. His music was more than a performance. It was a profound offering, a gift brimming with energy, unshakable joy, and the kind of passion that could touch the divine. A visionary who refused to be confined. He embraced the world boldly and seamlessly bridging the classical with contemporary, the East with the West. In his hands, the tabla became a storyteller, its rhythms speaking a universal language of beauty, connection, and harmony. His collaborations carried his art across borders, expanding the very definition of music itself. His rhythms will forever echo in our hearts, minds, and in this cosmic existence as a reminder of his timeless genius and soul. दाता हो दयाला तुम्हें दाता हो दयाला तुम्हें दीन दुनिया में रोशन दूषण दुख हरता महबूबा सोबाने जो दाता हो दयाला तुम्हें दाता हो दयाला तुम्हें मेरी पीड़ा में धीरा बांधा मेरी पीड़ा में धीरा बांधा या पीड़ा ना पीड़ा सिंधु से पाला करे है बेनी जागत जाने जो दाता हो दयाला तुम्हें दाता हो दयाला तुम्हें दाता हो दाता हो दाता हो दयाला तुम्हें।
Welcome, everybody, and I'm here to offer my Sufi version of some Islamic prayers that I know. In the name of God, most merciful and compassionate. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Kul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulid, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Kul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulid, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. Amin. Amin. The basic translation is, the most beautiful, compassionate, loving, infinite God of light and love invites you to know Him, and all you have to do is ask. Thank you.
It's very difficult to find the right words to say about Zakir. He meant so much to me and to so many people around the world. He was someone who had the strongest respect and empathy for people from so many cultures. He exuded joy, innovation, and a deep appreciation for all life had to offer. He made us feel that we were all part of a family of music lovers and adventurers. No matter how dull or trying your day may have been, you came away from a Zakir Hussain concert with a feeling of exultation. I recall what Iranian percussionist Peshman Haddadi said. Attending his concerts was a revelation, an invitation to approach music, performance, and life with a renewed sense of wonder and depth. In an interview in India Today, Zakir said,
If people all over the world would consider interacting with each other the way musicians and artists all over the world interact with each other, we would have a much more peaceful planet. How right he was. And if only what he said could become true. From 1979 to 2010, we presented Zakir 49 times under the auspices of the Alternative Center for International Arts, later known as the Alternative Museum, and the World Music Institute. It's hard to believe it was 49 times, which was well more than any other artist we ever presented. The first concert we did with Zakir was in March of 1979 at the Alternative Center. A month or so before, I got a phone call. Much to my surprise, it was Zakir calling to say he would be in New York with a young violinist, L. Subramaniam. He was looking for a venue to perform in New York. By this time, Zakir had already made a mark for himself with Shakti, the fusion group that he co-founded with John McLaughlin and L. Shankar, that is Subramanian's brother. This was to be the beginning of a long relationship, both professionally and as a friend. After this event, we presented him with such renowned artists as Ali Akbar Khan, Shiv Kumar Sharma, L. Shankar, Vilayat Khan, Sultan Khan, Hari Prasad Chaurasia, Nikhil Banerjee, Imrat Khan, Paramauladi Krishnan, Krishna Bhatt, Ashish Khan, Pandit Jasraj, Ram Narayan, Alaraka, G.S. Sachdev, the Kichlu brothers, and Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. In addition to vocalists and instrumentalists, he accompanied dancers Sitara Devi, Pandit Durgalal, and Birshi Maharaj. He was part of the Festival of India and numerous Masters of Percussion and World of Percussion concerts at World Music Institute. In the World of Percussion concerts, he performed both as a soloist and with musicians from other cultures, including Olatunji, Don Cherry, Nana Vasconcelos, and Giovanni Hidalgo. From 1986 onwards, Zakir Ji became World Music Institute's MVP, to use a sports term. He brought an amazing genius to all his musical endeavors. I particularly remember a particular remembrance I have is when, in October 1983, Ravi Shankar was playing at Carnegie Hall with Alaraka, with Zakir's father. On the same evening, we were presenting the Sarangi legend, Ram Narayan, with Zakir at Carnegie Recital Hall. During Ram Narayan's intermission, Zakir and I went up to Carnegie Hall balcony to catch a few minutes of Raviji and Alaraka's performance. It was truly a remarkable evening of ragas, both upstairs and downstairs. One concert that is truly memorable was when we invited Zakir to perform with the late Pakistani Qawwali musician, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. After presenting Nusrat in a number of concerts of Qawwali music, he wanted to do an evening of classical Khyal. I had earlier agreed to do a concert with L. Subramaniam and Zakir at Alice Tully Hall. I was a little concerned as to whether Subramaniam could fill the hall, and so we decided to add Nusrat and present both artists on the same program. One thing that bugged me was how to deal with the order of appearance. Since this evening had originally been offered to Mani, I quietly asked Nusrat if he wouldn't mind opening the concert. He, of course, reminded me that traditionally the vocalist goes on last, and then said, in his high tenor voice, that there was no necessity for him to sing that night. He would be happy to listen. I was, of course, well aware that the star of the moment was Nusrat, and that by far the majority of the audience were Punjabis. So there I am with Zakir sitting on the platform on which the musicians are to perform, trying to figure out how to deal with the ego situation. There are some great photos taken by Ira Landgarten that capture these moments very well. Subramaniam complained that he was tired and needed to get back to his hotel and rest before going on to perform. Zakir, meanwhile, said, "Mani, you know very well that you could get off a plane from Singapore and proceed to perform a 6-hour concert. It's our tradition." Finally, we came up with a compromise. Nusrat agreed to open the concert with a 45-minute set. Subramaniam would follow with a 90-minute performance, and Nusrat would end the concert with another 45-minute set. A good compromise. The concert ended well after midnight, but it sold out, thankfully, so we broke evens financially. It's expensive doing concerts at Lincoln Center. In addition to his work with Indian artists, Zakir was always open to working with musicians from other cultures. He was a towering figure in Indian music and in the world of percussion, and a beloved person. We honor his name and dedicate our concerts for the rest of this season in his memory. Our hearts go out to Tony, his wife, and their daughters, Isabella and Anissa. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm thankful that we could all be here to honor Zakir Ji and celebrate his life. Personally, I'm also thankful and blessed to have had Zakir Ji in my life from the time he first arrived in the States in 1970. It was in Pandit Ravi Shankar's home in Los Angeles when he had 19-year-old Zakir play with him at a gathering of friends. Imagine how taken we were. I had taken my first few tabla lessons with his father, Ustad Zakir, a few years earlier. One day, the other student and I had finished our lesson. Zakir Ji had gotten up and gone to sit at a table, and someone put a record on. My friend and I were still at our drums, and we were talking and not paying attention. And suddenly, Zakir Ji hit his fist on the table and said, "My son." It was Zakir Ji's first LP with Ustad Shamim Ahmed. In the notes on the record jacket, it said, "At 16, Zakir Hussain, with his deft touch and completely relaxed manner of tabla playing, already shows definite signs of becoming a great name in the world of Indian music." Little did we know. How in 1967 could we have conceived of what "my son" would mean? Certainly, we were all impressed over the years, and more so as each year passed. His sound, his creativity, each year with a new technique, a new concept, a new approach to his pieces, his spontaneity, the variety of colors and expressions in his playing, his special connection with the artists he was accompanying, and his special connection to his audiences. And in his lectures, he had a remarkable way of explaining even the most difficult concepts to someone who didn't even know music at all. And what kind of person was Zakir Ji? Everyone has spoken of this. Generous and thoughtful, humble, compassionate, supportive, dignified, respectful, honorable, and always polite. He loved his students and he taught them with passion. And when speaking about his beautiful family, that's when he really lit up. About 10 years ago, after his concert at Carnegie Hall, and the room was filled with people waiting to speak with him, he came right over to me and speaking about his daughter, he said with this grin from ear to ear, "Anissa is going to have a baby." And then he told me when the baby was due and how Anissa was doing and so on. How many times did we see Zakir Ji greeting admirers after a concert, when he would give attention to each and every person? And for those who were nervous, or perhaps even wanted his autograph, he'd have a way of putting them at ease, maybe with, "Hi, I'm Zakir," or some other joke, or ask them about themselves. And then how did he remember so many people? With this one, "And how is your aunt doing?" And this one, "Oh, have you moved to New York?" And another one, "How is your practice going? Give my best to your Guruji." And then he would deflect all of the attention that was showered upon him. And if somebody were to ask him, if somebody were to say to him, "You're the best tabla player there is," he would always say, "No, there are at least 10 or 15 who are as good as me." And about his empathy, after one concert, I had been speaking with a young man who was very, very nervous about meeting Zakir Ji, and he had a bouquet of flowers in his hand. I watched as Zakir Ji put him at ease. And then someone wanted to take photos, and the young man stepped aside, and Zakir Ji called him, "Where are you going? Where are you going? Come join us." And he put his arm around this young man and had him stand with him in the center of the group. This was Zakir Ji. All who knew him knew that he was concerned about everyone, always looking after everyone. "How was your flight? Are you feeling better now? How are you going to get home at this hour?" And when he was on tours with musicians, it was always, had they eaten? Had they slept? Did they need anything? I had been at the receiving end of his kindnesses and generosity on many occasions. From the time Zakir Ji was a child, he had known my first husband. And when my husband died many, many years ago, Zakir Ji called immediately, of course to offer his condolences, but also to see what he could do. "Whom shall I call? What do you need? Shall I come?" And he called again and asked the same. Each year, I would make a rakhi for Zakir Ji and send it to him. And only on 2 occasions did I have the opportunity to tie it on his wrist. This past October, after his concert, we were speaking for a few minutes, and then someone wanted to take photos, and then we spoke again and said our goodbyes. Zakir Ji stepped 3-4 steps away to speak with someone, and then he turned around and said, "I wore your rakhi I'm thankful to carry these words as the last ones he said to me. I'll close with one more memory. At least 20 years ago, I was sitting with one of the master tabla players and Mr. Warshawski of Indian Archive Music, and a fellow I didn't know. At one point, the fellow asked our tabla player, "So who are the best 5 tabla players?" And he answered, naming 5 of the senior-most artists. And I suppose this fellow thought he had gotten some inside information and said, "I see you didn't say Zakir Hussain." And our tabla player took a deep breath and looked down and said, "Zakir ji is Zakir ji. To us, he is God. Even we don't normally utter his name." Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for all the people who have been talking so far. So touching to hear all of these stories and these memories. I want to take the occasion as well to thank Rachel and Sunny for organizing this gathering and for inviting World Music Institute to be a part of it. Our board and our staff are honored to join in this celebration of Zakir's life and the lasting effect he has had on all of us, as an artist, as a friend, as a teacher, and of course, as a loving son, husband, father, and family member. To say he has enriched all of our lives is an understatement. And within this grief and sadness, though, it feels good to be here in this room today in the company of so many of us who deeply mourn Zakir's passing, but who also celebrate his life and are grateful to have had him in our lives and to share these stories, memories, prayers, and music. I'm both personally and professionally grateful to Zakir. Personally, because as a girl born and raised in Vienna, Austria, surrounded by classical music and waltzes, he and his music have opened doors into a whole new world of rhythms and cultural traditions for me. A fascinating and intriguing world, as you all know. I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for the kindness and the warmth that he always extended towards me whenever we met. So many people have commented on his smile and how he made you feel, very special, and he's there for you. He was very helpful to me when I started in working with World Music Institute. Professionally, World Music Institute has had the pleasure, as Robert already mentioned, to regularly present Zakir in New York ever since 1986, based on his good relationships with one of our board members, Daisy Paradis, and of course with Robert, WMI's founder and executive director, and his wife Elaine, on whose shoulders we continue to stand to this day. In whatever configuration, Zakir's performances and his presence touched and elevated everyone in the room. No wonder that audiences kept coming back year after year to experience him in a by now total of 51 WMI shows. We are honored and we are grateful for all that he's done for us over the years. His service as an honorary board member, or as an MVP, as Robert said, added prestige and credibility to our small but mighty nonprofit organization. And he was always open and willing to support our fundraising efforts by agreeing to perform at intimate fundraising events or at benefit concerts. Zakir will always remain an inspiration to all of us at WMI. He personifies what we seek to embody and convey: an absolute commitment and dedication to artistic excellence, a deeply felt curiosity and willingness and playfulness to explore and embrace other cultures and musical styles, engaging in those cross-cultural dialogues that build bridges. Aside from his unforgettable collaborations with all of the Indian masters, such as his father, Ustad Rakab, Pandit Ravi Shankar, Ustad Sultan Khan, Ustad Ali Akbar Khan, and the late Shiv Kumar Sharma, to name just a few, Zakir brought the soul of Indian music to collaborations with a wide variety of international artists, such as George Harrison, Van Morrison, Bill Laswell, Mickey Hart, John McLaughlin, and Bella Fleck, again, to name a few. Always celebrating life and our shared humanity, always connecting us all in deep and meaningful ways. Thank you, Zakirji, for that. Your passion and your music will always live on. And I now want to hand it to Daisy Paradis, one of our board members, who has known Zakir for so much longer than I have, when he was 20 years old. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby. I'd just like to give some memories of Zakirji over the years and how he came to the US. My first memories of Zakirji were at the Ali Akbar College of Music in Berkeley, California. Actually, the story started before he arrived in 1970 or so. The Ali Akbar College needed a tabla player. Our tabla teacher at the time, Pandit Shankar Ghosh, had come to the realization that he had to return to India. I went to his house to ask him why he was leaving and express our regrets. Shankar Da just motioned to his son, Bumba, and said, "Well, look." Bumba was 6 at the time. He was wearing a cowboy hat, waving a toy gun in the air, and racing around the living room, yelling, "Bang, bang, 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 bang." Shankar Das said, if he grows up in America, he will never be a tabla player. I had hoped that Shankar Da might change his mind at some point, but there was no arguing with this demonstration. Shankar Da was right. But Kansab was quite angry, Bumba or no Bumba, and he never forgave Shankar Da. Bumba eventually grew up to be the brilliant tabla player we all know today as Bikram Ghosh. In any case, after a month or two, Zakirji arrived at the college. He was 20. He was the son of the great tabla player, Alaraka Kansab. In those days, Zakir was not Zakirji yet. We students missed Shankar Da as well. Zakir Da seemed to be a young guy who played awfully fast. Little did we know. As time went on, he collected a group of hotshot, actually very promising young tabla students around him. My husband David and I remembered talking to him after he had played a concert with Kansab, one of his first, I think, concert with Kansab. He said, and I quote, "Kansab gave me many, many uneasy moments." But he credited Kansab as giving him a priceless musical training. I imagine that is why Alaraka Kansab probably wanted him to go to California. It seemed only about 5 years later that he was already a brilliant artist, playing with all the top artists and in demand all over the world. The famous sitarist Krishna Bhatt, who is here tonight, commented that playing with him was supremely easy. He had an intuitive sense of what the instrumentalist was going to do next, almost as if he could read their minds. His performance in Sat Sanghat, in which the instrumentalist and tabla player improvised simultaneously, seemed to be infallible and effortless. While he was an amazing and brilliant artist, he was also a kind and generous person. He never seemed to be full of himself in any way. His artistry has always seemed flawless and never-ending. He brought us a bright light that we expected would never stop. Thank you, Zakirji. You've enriched our lives forever.
On the way here, I read this quote, and I thought that it resonated with this occasion. It said, "Memory is a kind of labor. To remember is to honor the hands that shaped the world before ours." And that is exactly what happened here. I'm here on behalf of my colleagues at Brooklyn Ruggamassive and myself as a student of tabla to pay my respects to Ustadji, whose presence as an artist helped many of us realize the potential of what it meant to be an artist. Not just an artist tied to a specific place and time, but an artist in the largest context of that word, what it meant to create. His sound first reached me when I was a little girl in Trinidad, just learning to love tabla, practicing during power outages and floods, memorizing qaidas when my cousins would be at birthday parties. There, I must have heard Ustadji's playing from one of my dad's cassette tapes, and even as a child, I recognized this playing to be marked with joy. It was special. It was a perspective unto its own. His name, even in Trinidad, was a household name among Trinidadian fans of Indian classical music. Something like a hero turned into a god. There was Ganesh, Saraswati, Shiva, Guru, and Ustad Zakirji had a huge, radiant place in that pantheon. To me, he was the alpha and the omega of rhythm, a master not only of bowls, of his music, history and lineage, but of storytelling, of composition and experimentation. I remember when I moved here in about 1997, living in Queens, New York, Richmond Hill, somehow my parents subscribed to the World Music Institute calendar, and that for me was the beginning of it all, really. I used to pore over that calendar and circle every single Indian classical concert you presented, and especially the ones with Zakirji being featured. And as such, I first met Zakirji at a concert in person, and my hands shook, just like many of the stories that have been told. I was shaking, and I willed myself to unfreeze and touch his feet, and his smile and his general demeanor of welcome just melted that. Until then, I had religiously listened to the album Together from 1990 on my way to tabla classes, a bootleg of Zakir Hussain Magical Moments of Rhythm on cassette tape from 1992 again and again. Its brilliance would color any mundane landscape and transport you to a place of beauty, and the possibility of your own riyaz too now was endless. Ustadji's ability to compose thematically, abstractly in records like Elements of Space and Deserts. Those records seriously attuned many of us to the art of how to build a listening environment out of abstraction and tradition both. I saw glimpses of this type of engineering when I had the blessing this past summer through Toniji to attend his camp in August in San Anselmo. There, he could take any phrase and grow it mathematically, morph it in the most organic ways, intuitive ways, with endless play, and he demonstrated the kindness that he would deconstruct and make apparent all of his thought processes and make them accessible to students of all levels. All of these memories and experiences of learning and listening are still alive and eternal and palpably still in the air. We all feel the strength of its voice pouring over the grief in all the musical languages Ustadji spoke. We are forever grateful for this resonance. And I will always remember when he said in one of the classes, just in passing, just throw your hands, just no matter what, like even if you know you can't do it, just throw your hands. And I think in that way we will continue to reach for him and through his inspiration to reach for the music and each other. So thank you, Zakirji, Ustadji.
Hello again. It's such an honor to be here. We came up from Philadelphia just minutes before everything started. Excuse me. And I was asked to say a few words about my early days of knowing Zakirji. And I just have funny stories. I don't know how many to tell, but I met him at Mickey Hart's ranch. I don't even know how I got there or why I was there, but some friends were there organizing some Grateful Dead benefit concert, and okay, I'll come, you know. And I remember getting out of the VW bus and looking around, and the most interesting music I ever heard was coming out of his barn and just floating through the whole area. And I thought, wow, you know, that's a little bit Indian, but a little bit not. And that was one of the original recording days of Shanti. And that was one of the first fusion bands that were happening. That must have been 1971. So I looked around and I saw all these beautiful horses were just walking wherever they wanted to, on the porch, in the pasture. And I said, Mickey, can I ride a horse? Can I ride one of your horses? He said, sure. If you can catch one, you could ride one. And in those days, I did a lot of horseback riding, so that wasn't a problem. I found a beautiful horse and saddled him up and spent my day listening to this divine, beautiful music coming out of the barn and just meandering with that horse all around the property. And then they took a break and they all came out. And so I just, you know, was standing there sitting on the horse still. And Zakir comes up to me and grabs the horse, you know, holds him by the reins and looks at me and said, you know, he threw me. And that was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And I mean, there's so many other things. This was the 70s. It was Bay Area, California. So one time he decided he wanted to borrow my car. And I had an old Mercedes. I don't know even how I managed that, but it was a cool car. And I said, okay, yeah, you can have the car for a couple of days. And days go by. And I don't know where my car is, you know, or where Zakir is. And he finally, he shows up and says, oh, all these amazing stories that happened, which made him go back over the bridge again and not come to Berkeley where I was. And I looked at him, I said, you could just ask me to have the car longer, it's okay, you know. And then later on, I moved to the East Coast. And then I was the tambura player that was available for any concert in New York, Philadelphia area. And I loved doing that. And So I was tambura player, driver. And so it would be going to the airport, picking him up, taking him to the concert, getting ready for tambura playing, and taking him back somewhere else. And it was hilarious. And I was privileged to hear many incredible, never recorded solos on my dashboard, as we were driving here and there. So, just so many stories like this. And I have to say, one of the most interesting stories was the very last story that happened on January 27th. It was a week ago. And in Sufi and Islamic tradition, 40 days after somebody passes is a very special celebration of their life. It's a time for the people who are mourning to kind of celebrate that person, and it's a time for the person to kind of feel free to go to the next thing they have to do. And that's the 40th day celebration. And so I counted the days, and it was Monday the 27th. And it also was a special holiday on the Islamic calendar called Mihraj, which happens once a year and happens on a slightly different day every year. And the basic meaning of that holiday is the Prophet Muhammad wanted to meet the invisible God and not have to die to do it. He wanted to meet the invisible God as a being that was still a being on earth. And so it's celebrated that he rode this mythological beast, like a unicorn, kind of the Barak, to go meet God. And that's what's celebrated, is people stay up all night and pray all night. And I thought, only Zakir Ji would have his 40th day on this holiday in particular. I mean, how extraordinary that was. So we all miss him. Everyone who knew him considered him their best friend. And he was everybody's most beloved friend and most humble. And I'll say also, the meaning of Zakir in the Arabic language is after the prayer called zikr, which is the remembrance of God. And he was just born that way. He was a walking remembrance of the divine, and we all appreciated it so much. So I'm going to try to play some flute instead of tambura. Can you hear this? Okay. Thank you.
Greetings and namaste to all of you here today. I am Avirod Sharma, and the young Sarangi maestro, Rohan Misra. This loss, especially for the musicians, I think for all the researchers and the academians, decades from now we'll still be unraveling the greatness of the late Ustad Zakir Hussain in terms of technicality, presentation, styles. And, growing up as a teenager here in New York City, Roshni's from Trinidad, so am I. We had a very similar journey. Robert mentioned the MVP, being an MVP. As a teenager, watching Michael Jordan performing, and Zakir, I think, were very synonymous. And, you're working on your jump shot in your backyard while you're working on your dhira-dhiras. It was truly a special time, and we will truly cherish the contributions that he's made. Today I'll be presenting a very short tabla solo in Tintal, in Trut Tintal, and Rohan will be accompanying me. Thank you. This Zakir ji has popularized, and in my humble attempt, I'll play this piece to honor him. Sarangi volume, please.
Thank you. First of all, pranam, pranam to Ustad Ji, Ustad Zakir Hussain. I was fortunate enough to call him Zakir Chacha Ji. I was fortunate enough to spend some time with him, and I just wanted to offer as much as I could right now. I'm sorry I'm not at my best at the moment. I'm a little emotional and just wanted to share whatever I can. So I just wanted to end just a few more minutes with the bhajan, and that'll be it.
There is a spirit. It lives and connects. It's very emotional for me to speak about it. So I have tried to make friends with this spirit. I have tried very hard to connect with it. I found myself wanting at times. I found myself not worthy enough. And so sometimes connection happened, sometimes it didn't. But when the spirits met, magic appeared.
Very true. Kya
And to see that appear in such great maestros makes this life worthwhile. And so I have to say that someday that connection will be there.
Someday that connection will be there, and that connection continues. Thank you for such a moment of community, grief, and joy. Thank you for being here today.